Hello, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Talkabout. My name is Shabnam Riaz and today we're going to be talking about idioms. Okay, so you may ask yourself, what is an idiom and why should I be concerned about it? Well, idioms are those parts of language, and they can occur in any language, not just the English language. A group of words that are brought together, they have an expression that is very, very popular and has passed down through the ages. And if you took the literal sense of what was being said, it doesn't make any sense. But they do mean something when all those words are phrased together. They have an origin, they have a background, and they have a correct usage. Let's have a look at some of the very interesting ones. So let's look at this one. To fly off the handle. Now, what does that mean? Literally, of course, you wouldn't really understand if you're not familiar with this term. But to fly off the handle means somebody who is exhibiting risky behavior or is getting angry about something or is unpredictable. Where does this idiom come from? Now, that is very interesting. This idiom actually comes from the times that, axes were used during warfare, medieval as well, that time as well. And people, if an axe was not made properly, fixed together properly, then during a battle or during a war, it would come off. And of course, that would be disastrous for the person wielding it. So that's where that comes from. To fly off the handle means indulging in risky behavior or getting angry very quickly or unpredictable. This one, once in a blue moon. Now, this one is actually something that does occur. It is an astronomical phenomenon, and it refers to having a full moon twice in 1 month. And the occurrence of this is usually about every 2.7 years. It's not something that happens so regularly. So that's why you get this expression of saying, well, I remember going to the library, but we only went once in a blue moon. So something that is not done very often. So you may or may not have heard this phrase, under the weather. What does under the weather mean? Well, if you're not feeling too good, you're feeling a bit sick, you can say to someone, if they call you or if they come around and say, well, I'm not really feeling that good today, I'm a bit under the weather. So the origin of under the weather, where does that come from? It's amazing to see that lots of these idioms actually come from sailing, sailors being in the sea, because that was a time of great unpredictability, and sailors were usually very superstitious. And that idiom comes from there. Why? Because sailors usually used the phrase under the weather bow, and what that meant was the brunt of the ship, the side of the ship that was getting the brunt of the storm. So if a sailor felt particularly seasick, they would go and retire in their cabin, and that would be away from where, the weather bow was, and literally they would be under the weather. Giving someone the cold shoulder. That's another one that people may not be very familiar with. But to give someone the cold shoulder means that you want them to go now, or you're just, telling them it's time to leave, or you want some time for yourself, or you're not generally interested in spending some time with them or interacting with them at that time. That's what giving someone the cold shoulder means. Now, where does this come from? Well, etymologists say that this dates back to medieval times, when the hosts in a dinner or a lavish dinner or any sort of a dinner would actually serve the shoulder pieces of meat to their guests to signal to them that the dinner was over and they needed to go home. This one, by and large, you may have heard people say, well, by and large, that house was quite a good size to live in. It means something general. When you're discussing something or you're describing something that you really don't want to give a specific idea or a specific characteristic to, you would say, well, by and large, or roughly, it means about. Where does this come from? Again, we're going to be talking about sailors. And sailors were the first to refer to things as by and large. Why was that? Well, the first part refers to the nautical term, which is actually full and by, which means that a boat is traveling into the wind. And on the other hand, large means the wind is coming from behind. So by and large, that would mean the wind is coming from any direction. Now this one is very interesting, white elephant, the term of white elephant. If you haven't heard it before, if you term something as a white elephant, it means that it is something that deserves a lot of maintenance. It is something that is very luxurious to maintain. That is what the meaning of a white elephant is. And the interesting thing about this is that many years ago, in Thailand, the kings of Thailand used to give a white elephant to their enemies. Yes, an actual white elephant to the people that they wanted to punish. And you would think with something so beautiful and something so, unique, what type of a punishment was that? Well, just listen to this. What happened was the white elephant was very hard to maintain. It required a lot of maintenance. It required a lot of money. So with this intent, that gift was given, hoping that the person, the recipient of the white elephant, would soon strain all their finances and lose them in looking after that white elephant. Quite sneaky, I would say. Okay, here's one of my favorites. It's raining cats and dogs. Well, raining cats and dogs is a term that many people use when we're talking about torrential rain, when we're talking about a terrible storm and we want to describe the weather. We can say, well, it's been raining cats and dogs. We really don't want to go outside at the moment. Where does this come from? What's the origin to this idiom? Well, we're not really 100% sure, but it seems that in round about, the 1700s, when there were thatched houses, during a storm, pets, cats, dogs used to get scared and they used to hide there. So when it rained too hard or too fast and the weather was really violent, the poor animals used to fall from there and fall into the street or the road. And that's where that expression came about, raining cats and dogs. Poor animals, why didn't they just let them inside? So I really hope you found that interesting. I loved reading about them. I loved reading about the origins. I knew the idioms, but I didn't know where they came from. I thought that was very exciting. This is part of a series I want to making learning English fun and making it entertaining as well. If you have any ideas as to what we can talk about next, do drop a suggestion in the comment box below. If you like the video and you'd like to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Looking forward to hearing from you. Make English learning fun. Until next time, bye bye.